Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. A very popular chart analyst says that it's about time for another price burst for Bitcoin. And he says that, it's up only season. So once this thing starts going again, don't expect it to stop anytime soon. So what does that mean for XRP? Well, I've covered in recent videos perspective from a number of chart analysts, and there's this range of the mid to upper 60-something cent region that I keep seeing multiple chart analysts talk about in terms of expectations for short-term price action if the market's going to move to the upside. And let's be real, I think pretty much everybody recognizes that Bitcoin leads the market, and if Bitcoin's going to go up, XRP is just going to follow directionally. And the good thing is that recently, as Bitcoin recently burst from about $28,000 or so up to, at one point, a little over $35,000, XRP absolutely moved in perfect correlation. Even if we didn't have the same impressive percentage increases over a given 24-hour period, it's still doing what it's doing. But when Bitcoin starts going, like especially the first day, let's be real, that's a Bitcoin day. But the market moves in tandem, so it's fantastic for everything. And XRP has absolutely caught up quite a bit. So I'll share with you perspective on that. And also, there's a broader question. There's a couple other topics I want to talk about in this video, because there's a broader question about the BlackRock ETF situation. Is it overblown? Is it actually going to result in insane price appreciation for Bitcoin and the broader crypto market? And I still maintain absolutely the answer to that question is yes. But there's a very popular analyst out there who I think does a fantastic job. He just asked a question, and I'm going to share with you exactly what he stated here, but it's a reasonable question that might make you second guess that. I'm still not concerned, and I'll explain why. And then there's this question of, is Bitcoin and the broader crypto asset class, is it actually finally decoupling from the stock market? Because as I'm sure everybody's aware at this point, or the vast majority, maybe you don't if you're new to crypto, in which case, welcome. It's a wild ride here. The crypto asset class, for the entirety of its existence, has moved in tandem. So Bitcoin leads the way, and then altcoins follow. And you can find some outliers here and there, sure, of course, stuff like that happens, but just broadly speaking, it moves in tandem in a way that you don't necessarily expect, not to this degree, in the stock market. Cryptocurrencies are not sufficiently being parsed out in terms of the value that they offer, not sufficiently, and I think that this speaks to the degree that we're in a nascent asset class still, even after 14 years, I would argue that. So is something different here now? Because stocks have not been doing so well, and some analysts have argued, stocks are in a bear market now. That it's just hit. But you see Bitcoin charts looking absolutely fantastic. So is there an actual decoupling now? But before going further, actually, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Now, as I record this latest Moon Lambo hot jam, XRP's 54 cents, Bitcoin at $34,274, in the Crypto Fear and Greed Index at 65 out of 100, so market participants are feeling greedy. You'll love to see it. Here is a chart, which is a Bitcoin USD chart shared by chart analyst Credible Crypto. 348,900 followers now, well-deserved, I would say. And in part, he wrote the following. The Bitcoin chart below was taken from my most recent video update shared 2 days ago, and I think we are just about ready for the next leg up. And so, folks, he's been saying this for some time. He's been one of the most bullish throughout this year. And he also was asked the following by somebody on crypto Twitter here, or what do we call it now? Just Crypto X? I don't know. Everybody always abbreviated it CT for short. I don't know. Some people are still using CT, as you can see on the screen here. But anyway, this guy wrote, "It looks good indeed, Credible Crypto. Few good crypto Twitter folks calling for a pullback to low 30s once we hit $40,000. How likely do you see that playing out?" So there, the question being is, once we get closer to $40,000, are we actually going to see a pullback to maybe around $30,000 or so? Incredible Crypto says very, very unlikely. It's up only season, baby. So he's very optimistic for this. And that chart I had on the other screen, you can see, I mean, he's anticipating it shooting up. You look to where the arrow is going, upper $40,000 something region. Now, he may just be trying to indicate directionally that's we should expect, not necessarily $48,000. But he has also said earlier this year, and up to this point he's been maintaining this, he still thinks that what is most probable is we will see a new all-time high for Bitcoin this calendar year. And he's the only analyst that I regularly follow that thinks that that's the case. So I hope he's right, because sometimes minority opinions absolutely do pan out. And then there's also this. And this topic I find very fascinating, because I've been saying for some time that it's hard to overstate the impact that a spot Bitcoin ETF will have. And yeah, it'll be fun to see the initial news, cause Bitcoin and broader crypto asset class to rally to whatever degree it does. And maybe it goes back down shortly after that. Okay, fine. We see stuff like that happens when news breaks. And of course, there's also the factor, okay, to what degree is it priced in? And that's somewhat of a no-no. I think it's mostly not priced in to this point. But there's this question again, is it actually going to do anything meaningful? I've argued over a really long period of time, especially if you look 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, the amount of money that will have exposure to Bitcoin that otherwise wouldn't will be substantial. But you know that there have been spot Bitcoin ETFs before, just not in the United States, right? For instance, there's a spot Bitcoin ETF in Canada, and that's from a firm called Purpose Investments. And on your screen right here is a chart, and the yellow bars, that would show the Purpose Investments Bitcoin ETF holdings. And then you can see the Bitcoin price in United States dollars laid right on top of that. And this was shared by TXMC. And this particular analyst I'm a big fan of, formerly worked at Glassnode. And I'm a big fan of Glassnode too, because they pull data from blockchains. Like it's on-chain analytics. I love that stuff. And TXMC I find to be rather insightful. And so he's asking here a question because he doesn't seem to find the argument compelling, the idea that, what I was just saying, that a spot Bitcoin ETF would indeed cause markets to rally to any particularly notable degree. So let's break this down. He wrote the following. Canada has had a spot ETF for over 2 years. Holdings have been essentially unchanged since July 2022. If there was an urgency among the $2 trillion Canadian pension market to get exposure to this asset, wouldn't the value be climbing? What am I missing? A common reply, it's Canada, bro, as if that explains anything. A top 10 world economy by GDP, generally more friendly to crypto regulation, with a massive money printing disease. Literally the ideal setup for Bitcoiners to be bullish Canadian adoption, isn't it? People keep telling me how much money BlackRock has, but that isn't my point. I also didn't ask why Canada is smaller than the United States. I asked why the human beings in Canada, a major economy, are not demonstrating steady allocation behavior when they have multiple spot ETFs. It's just a simple question with data included, and yet many of you chose to treat this like a threat to your belief system, calling me a dumb clown. Do some self-reflection and grow. Yeah, and so I appreciate that he's asking the question. If you're not convinced of something and you want to engage in thoughtful discourse, you pose the question. And maybe you could even be persuaded, right? Because if you're not ideologically driven, if data hits you, might be a good argument. Like, oh, hey, okay, I buy that. That makes sense. And so that's where he was coming from, obviously. And with this being, the internet, you're going to have all sorts of people come out of the woodworks. And if they do feel like their belief system is challenged, as is the case with many toxic Bitcoin maximalists, yes, they're going to perceive the question as an attack. You see that stuff all the time. I hate this crap, but this is how some people behave. The question's perfectly reasonable. And I also think that there's a very reasonable answer. And so I certainly don't share the concern. And it can be summed up right here by analyst Will Clemente with his 691,000 followers. And he seems to be more like a Bitcoin maximalist type, but he's right. Look here's what he said. He reposted what TXMC shared, and he wrote, here's the difference. Purpose, so that would be Purpose Investments, has $14 billion in assets under management. BlackRock has $9 trillion. Reputation and resources they have to throw at pushing it are infinitely larger. Yeah, and so I'll word it a little bit different than that, but the concept is correct. So if you look at the chart that I just had full screen here, I'll make it full screen again. This is from TXMC showing Purpose Bitcoin ETF holdings and then the Bitcoin price. You look. The reason that this is going to go bonkers over a longer period of time is because you're going to have investment advisors pushing the spot Bitcoin ETF to their clients. as Anthony Scaramucci, who is the maybe I think it was co-founder of Skybridge Capital, major firm with however many billions in assets under management. He's publicly stated, look, there's over on Wall Street, there's over 100,000 investment advisors that once these spot Bitcoin ETFs get approved, they're going to be pushing this to their clients. So you're talking about firms. If you talk about all the firms that are applying right now, I think the number was something like they have something like $17 trillion in assets under management. And if they have their teams in unison pushing this product to their clients, yes, you better believe they're a good sales force. And like, I understand how sales works. Like, it's not just a product is available and then people flock to it. And so I think that that's what the point that TXMC was missing. Now, I happen to have a strong background in sales. I started my career in outside sales, actually selling business-to-business products. I won't get into the specifics of it, but I was literally in my early 20s after I graduated from college, knocking on business doors, walking in, introducing myself, just striking up a conversation, and then ultimately trying to pitch product. So the product was available whether or not I went into the individual business locations, but were they flocking to us? No. You have to go out there and sell it. So when you're talking about 100,000 investment advisors absolutely pushing this thing to their existing clients, yes, it's an upsell. And you better believe a ton of them are going to go. So then as far as what happened with this firm in Canada, Purpose Investments, well, to what degree they sufficiently push this, I can't say, and it's just one firm right there. And it is a small amount in terms of assets under management, so that wouldn't move the needle on a global scale, even if they did a good job. But when you're talking about $17 trillion in the United States, the largest economic juggernaut in the history of our species, yeah, that's going to move the needle. That's definitely going to. So it's a perfectly reasonable question that TXMC asked here, but I think the answer is actually fairly simplistic. It's that it was just a tiny amount. So even if they did a great job with their sales forces, which is to say their investment advisors pushing this to their existing clients, even if they did, and I don't know if they did, but even if they did, that's one small firm with $9 billion in assets under management. When you compare that, and I say small, that's it's comparatively it's small when you're talking about $17 trillion in assets under management, and then my God, the attention this is getting on national television and social media as a result, it's not the same as when Canada got their spot Bitcoin ETF approved. And Larry Fink on national television saying that crypto is a flight to safety. Was that happening a couple of years ago? No, it's different. It just is different. So yes, I do firmly believe that all of these firms pushing this is the reason why. And so TXMC responded to Will Clemente and asked, so you think it's just a marketing thing? And I'll say this. I don't think it's a marketing thing. I think it's a sales thing. Marketing and sales are, although somewhat similar in some way, they're different. They're closely related, but they are different. When you're talking about sales, you're talking about individual boots on the ground out there pushing this thing. And I don't literally mean they're walking doors to door like I did in my early career, but making phone calls, contacting existing clients, taking a proactive approach. Whereas just launching this thing with no fanfare, no advertising, no marketing, and no sales force pushing it, no, that's not going to result in more money flowing into it. But doing all of those things in unison, yes, absolutely. And I think that it's going to be profound over a longer period of time. The first burst, when the news breaks, I think it's going to be fun. But I think the impact over a longer period of time is what really, truly matters. And so here's what Will Clemente said in response to that, though. Because again, the question, so you think it's just a marketing thing? Will Clemente said, Larry Fink, BlackRock, and Fidelity endorsing Bitcoin does more for the career risk of promoting/allocating to Bitcoin than Purpose ever could. So yeah, I think distribution trumps all, and BlackRock has the biggest of anyone. And so I broadly agree with the argument being made there, obviously, as I've articulated here. If you're talking about over 100,000 investment advisors, which just think of them as salespeople, pushing the product, yes, absolutely. And that's different than Purpose Investments, even if they did a great job, and I don't know if they did, but even if they did, that's a firm. That's one firm in Canada. This is not the same. This is clearly not the same. But it's a great question. It's a very reasonable question by TXMC, so I just shared my thoughts on that, but I'm glad that he asked it, and it made for an interesting topic of discussion. So you guys can tell me what you think about what he said in my perspective. That's how I look at it. Then there's also this. There's this video. I watched this earlier today. This is from chart analyst Alessio Restani. And he's got 66,000 followers on X, but he's got 375,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I would consider him to be one of the top shelf analysts out there. He's among one of my favorites. I just don't always cover his perspective because he's not always posting as regularly, and it's not always crypto related. But he had this video where he was speaking with somebody he knows. It's kind of a little bit of back and forth, not so much an interview. I don't know if it's supposed to be more of an interview. It was kind of a back and forth and sharing of ideas. And this guy that he was talking to, it was more so about the stock market. And I don't want to go through everything that they talked about. Check out the video yourself if you want to. It's pretty interesting. It went for about 20 minutes. But I've been following what he's been saying about the stock market in his recent videos, and he says stock market's in a bear market now. It has hit, and he's articulated why. And I don't want to regurgitate his TA, his technical analysis, explaining why. Just know that's his perspective, and he has given the technical reasons why. And it's fascinating though, because he's recognized even before Bitcoin had its recent run up when it was closer to like $28,000. He said Bitcoin's in a bull market though. Look at the charts; it's bullish, right? So how can this be? And so what he articulated is that one of these charts is lying. He says either this chart showing that stocks are the downside, because if you look at the Dow Jones or the S&P 500, look over the last 3 months, it's just trending on down. It just is. It's to the downside. And he says either that chart's lying and it's gonna have to snap back into place with Bitcoin, which is moving to the upside, or the Bitcoin chart is lying and it's gonna have to snap back in place to the downside. And so then you have this argument, is it the case, because it has been historically the case, that these asset classes will continue to move in tandem for these bigger moves, or is this the moment in time where there's a decoupling? And I'm not convinced one way. In fact, if I had to guess, I mean, it would just be kind of hard for me to believe that this is the actual moment in time after all these years where now there's an actual permanent decoupling. I do find that hard to believe. It could be the case. It could be. But I'm skeptical of that. So I don't know if that means that, chart analysts like Credible Crypto, and he says that, we're going to have a new all-time high this year. I don't know if he's wrong. And then we start seeing Bitcoin crater on down back into the lower 20,000s or something disastrous happens, which I'm not predicting. I'm saying I literally don't know. Or is it going to be the case that the stock market, it's approaching its bottom and it's actually just going to flip and then get back in line with Bitcoin? I mean, are they actually going to be divergent for the first time in history in a meaningful way? Because you've seen stuff over shorter periods of time, yes, where they're not perfectly correlated. That's not surprising. We've seen that before. But when you zoom out on a chart, you can see that they're moving in tandem. So the question is that done? That's the big question here, right? And so there was this post from TXMC, and he wrote, if indeed this time is not different for the economy in boomer markets, then it ironically means this time likely is different for Bitcoin and crypto writ large. And so what he's getting at there is that if the economy truly is going to keep going into the tank, if you look what's happening with stocks, then this time actually would be different for Bitcoin. Not that the Bitcoin chart, it says what it says. If you look at it in a vacuum, it's bullish. I get that. That's what the vast majority of analysts believe. But if you look at that and then also look at stocks, what would be different is that Bitcoin's divergent here compared to what the stock market is doing. So the point's not lost on me. So it's interesting. I don't pretend to know how this is going to pan out. I hope that either this is the actual decoupling, which I'm kind of skeptical of. We'll see. Just because we got 14 years worth of history showing that no. So if this is the point, fine. Okay, if this is it's really going to be decoupled forever. Okay, super duper. I'm not completely sold on the idea, but it's either that or what? I mean, are we going to have Bitcoin keep running up and then what? Stocks are just going to snap back into place with Bitcoin? You guys tell me. I don't pretend to have the answer, but that's what we're looking at here. And then there was also this headline from the Daily Hodl: Bitcoin has plenty of gas left in the tank after decoupling from stocks, says analyst. Here are his targets. So this analyst, who is a massive following also, he does seem to think that perhaps this is what's going on here, where there's a decoupling. One crypto analyst believes Bitcoin still has more room to run to the upside despite its already impressive rallies this month. Pseudonymous crypto analyst Kaleo says Bitcoin's relative performance against the S&P 500, or SPX for short, is part of a growing stack of evidence that Bitcoin has decoupled from the stock market. According to the analyst, Bitcoin has more gas in the tank for a further move to the upside. Kaleo says that based on Bitcoin's historic performance against S&P 500, a move to the next main resistance supply area of $40,000 is now a likely scenario. And he said, quote, over the course of the past month, we've finally seen the bullish decoupling for Bitcoin, from equities that everyone was waiting for. While Bitcoin is up only 36% versus USD from the September lows, Bitcoin is up 48% versus S&P 500. This chart is one of the reasons I still think there's plenty of fuel left in the tank for a move higher than $40,000. The solid white line that marks the 2017 ratio all-time high has been a significant pivot level for Bitcoin price action the past several years. It served as a solid baseline support for the 2021/2022 bull market, and when it was finally broken, served as the pivot point for the real momentum shift into the liquidation cascade to the lows we experienced in the second half of 2022 into the early part of this year. Now that we've cleared that level, we've got clear skies without any major resistance levels until the level where Bitcoin sold off due to the Luna/UST crash, which correlates to a Bitcoin price of $40,000, end quote. So that's what he says. And if he's talking over the short term, then that would seem certainly more plausible than my humble opinion. But you guys just tell me what you think here, because in particular, for the biggest moves that you see in the stock market, you can think like one of the most popular examples to pull from in recent memory would be the pandemic in 2020. You can think about how crypto and the stock market moved in like perfect unison during that crash because those risk on assets were just being treated the same. And so it's not the case that for even somewhat large chunks of time that you see a perfect correlation. And I'm certainly not arguing that, to be clear. But I'm just saying, if you zoom out on a chart and you look at, especially for those major pivotal moments, there is high correlation. There always has been. I don't think really anybody disputes that. So the question is, what's next? That's the only part that is slightly scary in terms of price action for crypto right now. And I say scary, not that I'd literally be scared, because even if we have a disastrous recession and stocks tank and crypto tanks, to me that would ultimately, if it goes low enough, just represent a buying opportunity. And I'll just wait however long I need to, because I understand that the economy will recover. I understand that stock prices will recover and crypto prices will recover. So I don't freak out when markets crash like that. I don't care. I just view it as an opportunity, because as long as I have income, as long as I've got money rolling in and I have a few income streams, I'm good. What's it matter? Not that I like seeing prices go down. I don't like seeing my net worth go lower, but I do like the opportunity to purchase. So as long as I got money coming in and I didn't need to pull out anything for any major expenses anyway, what the hell do I care? I'll just take the money that I'm currently earning while the prices are suppressed and then buy more, and it doesn't matter. And so that's why, like, that in a nutshell is why I don't get stressed and I don't have negative emotional responses to lower price action. I just don't, unless there were a fundamental shift that would cause alarm in me. But if you're just talking about the regular oscillations and regular volatility in markets, no, I don't care. I don't give a damn. It doesn't make logical sense to have those emotions. And if you have sufficient data to recognize that how humans behave, you understand why I feel that way, and how it just you can just stop letting yourself feel those emotions. Eventually it'll sink in for people once they've been in markets long enough. But anyway, so there's some general thoughts. You guys let me know what you think. I'm broadly optimistic, though. I mean, it seems pretty plausible, at least, that Bitcoin's going to keep running, XRP is going to follow, and it'll be interesting to see when things really heat up, because eventually we will be in euphoria again. I don't pretend to know exactly when, something sooner than later. But however long it takes, I'm going to be here, because it's going to be a hell of a ride. It's going to be a blast. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.